Tortillas for the Daltons is the 31st adventure of Lucky Luke and was first published in 1967. Drawn by the comic's creator Morris and written by Rene Goscinny, it was the 10th Lucky Luke comic book to be translated into English by Cinebook. 24 years after Tortillas for the Daltons was released, it was made into an episode of the second animated television series of Lucky Luke Adaptations. How faithful was this adaptation? Let's see if we can spot the differences. The habitual criminal Joe Dalton has decided to retire from a life of crime, much to the surprise of his far less devious brothers, and he orders them to start treating their prison cell more like a home. He hands Avril some red curtains to hang across their barred windows. In the episode, the curtains' colour was changed to white, which suggests the animators may have forgotten to paint them. But seconds later, when they have been hung up, they are yellow.
Stripes would go an awful lot better with our uniforms.
A photograph or painted portrait of the Daltons' mother's face is hung up in their cell. In the comic, the photo is actually a mugshot where Ma is missing her bonnet. A prison guard tells the brothers that they are being transferred to another prison. The guard, who has a striking resemblance to Horace Badin, at this point in the series had appeared in half of the Daltons' appearances, and was never seen again after this story. In this TV series, the character's design was changed to have a big bushy moustache.
What's the food like down there? I want to see the menu.
Avril voices his sadness that he and his brothers are having their freshly polished balls removed. This does not happen in the episode. The inept guard dog RinTinCan is brought along as added protection should the Daltons manage to escape from their handcuffs and padlocked coach during the journey. That evening, the men stop to rest for the night by the Rio Grande. We do not see inside the vehicle in the comic, but in the episode we do. This creates a continuity problem as the Daltons were not animated wearing handcuffs in these two shots, yet they do upon embarking and departing. Also, the leader of the escort is the one who brings the brothers a sandwich, only to have his hand bitten by Avril. But in the comic, it is another guard who gets the nip.
Reminds me of the last time we held up a train. Huh?
On the other side of the river, a group of Mexican bandits, led by Emilio Espuelas, think that the reason the coach is being guarded is because it contains a large amount of money. So while the men and Watchdog are asleep, they steal the coach. In the episode, the large cigar Emilio is constantly seen smoking was coloured white, making it appear to either be a Capri cigarette or a
Camberwell coat. Because I got high.
As usual in matters concerning the Daltons, Lucky Luke is summoned by the government to find and capture the brothers, which he refuses to do, until he witnesses the Mexican ambassador warning Mr. Fluffy Mutton Chops that if he allows bandits from the USA to cause trouble in Mexico, this may lead to another war between the two neighbors.
Okay, I'll go and get the Daltons for you.
Thank you, Lucky Luke.
Emilio is obviously not pleased to discover the Daltons are fellow criminals that nobody would pay a penny to save, and so is about to hang them when Joe offers to teach the Mexican bandits all their techniques that have made them the most feared outlaws in America.
Yahoo!
Hurry, cut the ropes! Caramba!
Jolly Jumper does not speak in this episode, despite the horse having a few lines in the comic, mostly directed at his annoyance with the presence of the brainless RinTinCan.
You stay there, hound dog.
Coming, master!
A recurring gag that was not used at all in the episode involves Avril learning how to say the Mexican equivalent of his catchphrase.
Hey, any idea when we're gonna eat?
After sighting Lucky Luke throws Joe into his usual temper tantrum until Emilio tranquilizes him, the Mini-Man lies to the Mexican, telling him Lucky Luke is an American expression, like caramba and sacre bleu. This leads to another recurring gag not used in the episode, where Emilio uses the heroic cowboy's name as a substitute for expletives.
What the?
Lucky Luke.
Get the
Lucky Luke.
baby on!
Lucky Luke.
Son of a...
Another absent joke is that as the local town of, I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce that, has no hotel, the chief of police suggests Luke use the town's saloon as his bedroom. The proprietor of the cantina rushes outside to change the name of his business.
You put the salt on your hand, and then you lick it. And then you drink. Saluda! Refreshing, no?
In the comic, Joe tells Emilio to make sure he uses his bandana to hide his face, but this backfires as Emilio has his name sewn into his bandana. Joe is furious because the bank has no safe nor money in it, and so the men flee the town, with Lucky Luke on their trail. The chief of police is so terrified when the cowboy mentions Emilio Espuelas that he falls out of his hammock.
Chief, the Daltons are in the area.
Congratulations, amigo.
One of the Mexican bandits spots Luke and Jolly Jumper approaching their hideout, and so Emilio takes the Daltons with him to capture the cowboy. As they begin crawling towards him, Joe starts sneezing, and then shooting wildly at Luke, who escapes back down the mountain. In the episode, it appears this may have just been a genuine mistake due to the Daltons' genuine stupidity. But in the comic, before they go out for a crawl, Joe tells his brothers that they have to prevent Luke from being captured, for fear that he will offer the Mexican bandits a ransom for the Daltons' arrest.
Come on, follow me, hound dog.
I wish he'd use my name. To him, I ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Emilio uses RinTinCan to check whether he recognizes the Daltons or not, and thus proving if they drew attention to themselves intentionally. He has the brothers call out to the dog, but the animal refuses to acknowledge them for fear that they'll steal his bone. In the comic, Emilio confiscates the quartet's guns in case they use them to shoot RinTinCan before he can carry out the test. Avril stupidly proves that he knows the dog, so Joe frantically fibs that RinTinCan is an American word for dog. He doesn't say this in the episode, and as a result of Emilio's experiment still having the same outcome, it comes across that he didn't really care whether the Daltons knew the trespassers or not. Emilio agrees to Joe's suggestion of going to see if the gringo is still in town, and if so, capture him. However, only on the condition that Avril stays as a hostage, which the brothers reluctantly agree to. In the episode, this conversation happens inside the bandit's house, but in the comic it takes place outside. Also, Jack Dalton seems just as happy as his taller, empty-headed brother, whereas in the comic he is as worried about Avril getting them into trouble as his shorter brothers. As soon as Joe, William and Jack ride off, Emilio slyly offers Avril some tequila to drink, giving him a pint while he has a shot glass. When the trio return to the hideout, Avril is drunk and has told Emilio that Lucky Luke would pay a ransom for the Daltons. This was changed in the episode as Avril emerges from the house with his mouth full of food and a sandwich in his hand, or possibly a bowl.
What do you call this delicious round thing with the beans inside?
That's what we call a clay ball, amigo.
A couple of scenes later, when Emilio gives the Daltons one last chance for the second time, Avril is lying down on a bench. While not exactly a bizarre thing, this was because in the comic Avril hasn't recovered from his tequila intake from the previous day.
There is one thing I want. To capture Don Doroteo. You find a way to kidnap him, and I will let you go.
We'll find a way. If it's criminal, we can do it.
While snoozing on the ground not too far out of town, Luke is mistaken for an outlaw, and is captured and taken to a villa. In the comic, RinTinCan's uselessness as a guard dog is further emphasized, as instead of Luke's revolver being placed near the dog, RinTinCan was actually sleeping on the gun belt. Another notable difference in this scene is that only one Mexican has caught the cowboy, as the other three, who don't talk, weren't animated in. Lucky Luke meets Doroteo Prieto, a rich ranch owner, and Rodriguez, his pet chihuahua. The men agree to work together to get rid of Espuelas and the Daltons. One of Prieto's servants offers the cowboy some imported tobacco. As Luke was not allowed to smoke in this series, the tobacco was changed to powdery-looking soap.
Wow.
The plan Luke comes up with is to organize a fiesta at the ranch, which Emilio knows will be the perfect opportunity to capture the rich rancher. An added piece of humor in the episode is when the Mexican bandit brings this information to the brothers, Joe gets smacked by the door. Emilio tells the Daltons they must disguise themselves as mariachis, and thus begins, over the next few pages, the brothers demonstrating their severe lack of abilities in singing and guitar plucking, to the point where the man Emilio told to teach the brothers to perform almost commits suicide. This comical sequence was not added to the episode, and neither was a much shorter sequence within the sequence, where while searching for food to pinch, RinTinCan interrupts a cockfight.
Oh, you look fantastic, amigos. But if you avoid singing, it would be much better.
Our pistols will do the singing.
On their way to the fiesta, Avril makes his most idiotic comment of the day, and Joe reacts surprisingly calmly, but still smashes a guitar onto his brother's head. The guitar remains attached to Avril's neck for a few more pages, but this does not happen in the episode. In the comic, Doroteo Prieto's face is hidden by the shadow of his sombrero, and the fact it is night, making it mildly surprising when it is revealed to be Lucky Luke in disguise. In the episode, Luke's face and distinctive hair was not obscured by the darkness.
I feel as if I'm uncovering a monument. A monumental mistake.
When the identity of the kidnapped man is revealed, Avril laughs out loud. This is because, in the comic, Avril knew it was Luke the whole time, as he recognized his face when he saw the cowboy walk past a lit-up lantern. The imbecile didn't warn his brothers, so to get revenge on Joe for hitting him with the guitar.
You asked for it, gringo. You mean you didn't even search him? An example of the Daltons' work?
Luke has a short shootout with the Mexican bandits, but very soon the police, the rancher, and the dogs arrive. Emilio is arrested, but the Daltons have escaped. Luke gives RinTinCan and Rodriguez all of the Daltons' prison uniforms to sniff. In the episode, he only brings them one of their shirts.
It smells like them. Yuck!
And so the Daltons are taken back to a prison in America, and the last joke cut out of the episode is Avril asking a passing cook,
¿Cuándo se come aquí?
but the man has no idea what he's talking about. One final note about this adaptation is that all the Mexican characters are far less tanned than Lucky Luke and the Daltons are.
Poor lonesome cowboy.